ethical conduct, skillful communication, and meditation. And if we could start that at the very earliest age, and by the time young people were 14 or 15, they would be extraordinarily adept communicators, you know? They would be highly trained at non-harming, you know? That's what I would do. You know, if I had the power, that's exactly how I would try to transform the society, not by reaching, you see how much gray hair there is in this room? You know, we're all going to be gone in 20 years, most of us, not all of us. but we geezers are going to be gone in 20, 25 years. And I would try to reach the young. You know? So I think your question is a really good one, and we could talk for hours about just this subject. I offered a retreat in New Zealand last year on socially engaged Buddhism, and we spent the entire week dealing with your question, actually. So thank you. One more, please.
Thank you for talking about, thank you for being here and talking about separation. And I'm from Iran, and I suppose I am a Sufi, although I have a problem with the am part. Because there is neither an I nor an am. So, and Rumi talks about, as I'm sure you know, begins with that line about lamenting separation. Yeah. And my question has to do with what it is. I am very much an activist.
Yeah. I've heard about you, actually. Understand? I've been told you wear a green bracelet. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, there you are. Okay. Thank you, brother.
It's the green movement of Iran.
Yes, yes.
I'm also part of the Occupy movement in this country.
Mm.
And I am wondering about what is it about this advanced, I guess, hyper-individualistic culture. I may be answering my own question, but what is it about this culture that propels progressive people to fall into the trap of field Buddhism and to turn that which they are trying to deal with, i.e. trying to engage in action to reduce suffering, to become something that becomes, as I call it, field Buddhism, as opposed to not. Chomsky talked about this. Noam Chomsky.
Right.
He said, he advised people. He said there is a difference between that which makes you feel good and that which actually does good.
Yes, this is a very, very wonderful question, and you know we have to leave in 5 minutes. but let me just share with you, and this is getting a little bit off the subject of spiritual practice, but not very far. You asked about this culture. This is just my personal sense of it. The reason that we have not become a culture that really cares about people and supports people is that the greatest wound of this country is racism. And because of race, people who are without power and without economic means have been divided from each other. So that in Europe and in other parts of the world, people who are without power and without the economic means have been able to get together, and they have saner societies than we have here. You know, we just haven't been able to do it because race has divided us. There's a whole lot more as well. But you know, the reason we have feel-goodism is that we don't have good analysis. You know? It's like Marx had fantastic analysis. I'm not talking about the communists. I'm talking about basic Marxist analysis is accurate in terms of really seeing how societies can work from my perspective. But didn't have a chance in this country because we couldn't get together. And I just finished a wonderful book called American Dreamers, How the Left Changed a Nation. Well, You know, it goes all the way back to the abolitionists of the 1820s and 30s. We influenced the nation, but we never changed it. So, sorry about that. So, but you know, this has gotten us a little bit aside, but it feels, I so appreciate. I just want to say I really honor your commitments. You know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, friends. Oh, you had your hand up a long time ago. Quickie.
Okay. I have. You talked about ethical behavior and the lack of it causing confusion, shame, doubt, self-doubt in the mind. I know a lot of people, and I include myself a lot of the time, who seem pretty ethical, still have a lot of that confusion, shame, and doubt.
Yeah.
My own take is maybe that since we're in an unethical culture, we can't escape entirely by our own devices, but I'd like to hear what you think.
Yeah, it's again, this is a massive subject, but it's been really interesting to hear Asian teachers, great Asian teachers like the Dalai Lama and others coming to the West here and being utterly confused by our unworthiness and shame. What on earth are you talking about? You know, I was there once, this was way back in the 70s, when someone said, you know, I'm full of self-hatred and shame and feelings of unworthiness. And he said, well, have you done a lot of harm? This is speaking directly to your point. And the guy said, no, not so much. And he said, what? So, you know, we can go into a whole big analysis of why, but this is the wound of Western civilization. I was talking about the wound of America's racism. The wound of Western civilization is that we are taught, all of us, taught to be self-judgmental, self-critical, self-rejecting, full of shame, full of unworthiness, and it starts with the idea of the fall. You know, we're born in sin, and we need to be saved by something external. Well, it's just not true. It simply isn't true, because we are whole, luminous, perfect being. We just have to discover that. We're not born fallen. We're just born confused. You know, and we remove the confusion, and here we are. You know, so I think that's why you can be perfectly ethical and still be hyper judgmental of yourself, because that's exactly because that's the way this culture is constructed. It's constructed on shame and guilt in our major religious traditions. And I don't want to be critical of those traditions. It just seems like it's just mistaken. Thank you. Well, thank you. Wow, these are big questions. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Maybe next year.
Next February.
So if you want to come to dinner, Autumn can be in charge of setting up dinner, so you can come talk to her about it. And if you're not on our listserv, I will just assume that talk convinced you that you ought to be. And there's a